Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ron and today we are going to be going over 5 very strong builds for the engineer, one for each job. This is going to be just like the last 5 that we've done for the other classes, so we're going to have a fun build, we're going to have a single target damage build, a CC build, or crowd control build, an ammo build, and a general purpose build. So first up we have a fun build, and fun build you can build whatever the heck you want. For me, I personally chose Cycle Overload for the Warthog Auto Shotgun, built for full rate of fire because there's no other way to use it as far as I'm concerned. This lets you have a very strong shotgun at very close range. It doesn't do well at longer ranges. It does kick around quite a bit, so at longer ranges it can be difficult to hold on target, but if you can get right up close next to big enemies, you can just shove this into them and do really high damage per second, and it's just a super fun shotgun to use overall. Like I said, I just run it full rate of fire, so it's built like this, and it hits really hard. I really enjoy it. For a secondary weapon, I decided to take the grenade launcher, and I took RJ250 with this one. This is the bouncy grenade launcher, so you can bounce yourself or bounce teammates around with it. I built it more for ammo and for fire damage so that we can still use it fairly well against crowds. Most of the time I'm just going to be using this to bounce myself around to get closer so I can use the shotgun on more things, or just to throw into crowds of grunts or swarmers just to get rid of them quicker. It works okay against everything else. Most of the time I'm just using the grenade launcher for mobility more so than anything else, or to at least back away from crowds so that I can just keep using the shotgun at a good range to where I'm not getting hit, but I can still hit them fairly well. Super fun build overall, but again, for a fun build, you can take whatever the heck you want, whatever you find fun, take that for your fun build. For our single target damage build and our second build, we are going to be taking the Executioner with the Loki Smart Rifle, or Block 1 Smart Rifle, however you'd like to pronounce it. This one gives you really high single target damage at not really much of a downside. You lose out on ammo, you lose out on maximum targets, which is kind of a bonus, but you can lock on quicker, and when you're fully locked on, you do 50% more damage to weak spots. That is fantastic. You will make up the amount of damage that you lose in terms of the ammo really fast with this one. It kills basically everything really quick, and if you want even more damage, you can always take it on a critical weakness mission. Then it is absolutely insane for killing everything. It is really good for killing Dreadnoughts, Praetorians, Mactera, anything that you really want. So long as you can hit in the weak spot, it will kill things super quick. So that one's kind of an obvious choice for our primary weapon. For a secondary weapon, also kind of an obvious choice, I decided once again to take the grenade launcher, and this is taking Hyper Propellant. A really high single target damage weapon that lets you have a very interesting damage type, because Hyper Propellant doesn't work quite the way it says, where it says most of your damage is changed from explosive damage to direct damage. That's not true, because you don't really have direct damage anymore. You still have some explosive damage, but you have disintegration damage now, which is a flat amount. So if you want to take the fire mod in tier 3, you can still do that. You don't lose out on any damage whatsoever. You can just light things on fire, which is really strong. Does super high damage per second. It's basically a sniper rifle at that point. So with this build, you have kind of a rifle with a sniper rifle. This build doesn't do incredibly well against crowds, and it is a bit heavy into the single target damage. It can still do okay at most jobs, but you can run through ammo with it kind of quick. You might want to switch these out for other things, or at least just take one of them for single target damage. You do have some other options with your primary weapons too. Again, with the Warthog, you could go with Cycle Overload, you could go with Magnetic Pellet Alignment. With Stubby, you could go with Refire Booster, or either the Turret Overclocks. They work decently well for single target damage. They're more for AoE, but I would say Refire Booster is probably the most for single target. And then Loki also could take something like Seeker Rounds. That's really good if you don't like armor and you just want to bypass it entirely. For secondaries, you have tons of options for single target damage. All of your secondary weapons can kind of work in every role. So we have Hyper Propellant for the grenade launcher. You could go with Return to Sender with the Breach Cutter and have good damage per second. Or you could go with something like Overdrive Booster for the Shard Diffractor. That one also has a lot of single target damage, and what I was debating putting here instead of Hyper Propellant, because I talk about Hyper Propellant pretty often, but I still feel like it belongs kind of up here. For our third build, we have a CC build, or crowd control build, and for this I decided to go with Stubby and go with Turret EM Discharge. This is a pretty strong overclock that gets you a lot of value. It's also pretty ammo efficient, which is nice. Once you build up your turrets, you can then shoot your turrets, and if you trigger the electricity status effect, it will send out a shockwave around it that zaps everything, dealing damage over time. It also slows everything that you hit, which is really nice. Comes at basically no downside for the submachine gun at that point, other than you having to set up this. Your turret, well, your submachine gun is worse for just shooting things normally, but it's not too noticeable. It's probably more noticeable if you switch off something like Refire Booster, but great option for just having a lot of crowd control there. And then for a secondary weapon, I decided to go with Spinning Death for the Breach Cutter. Now, Breach Cutter actually has quite a few overclocks that could work for crowd control. Basically, all of it could work, but this one is the most spectacular. And Spinning Death can do a pretty good amount of damage per second. It's really good if you take the stun with it, because it'll just sit there and spin. Once it hits something, it'll stun it, and then it has to sit inside there. I do like the Plasma Trail with this too, because it deals extra damage over time. So if you don't kill something big like a Praetorian, that might deal a little bit more damage to it. It also has good crowd control too, because you put this down in an area, and it's also really good for reses. You throw this on top of a teammate that went down, and then you can pick them up because the beam doesn't hurt you, but it will hit all the bugs. And again, if you have the stun on it, you have a 3-second stun for everything that steps into the area that doesn't just die from it. So really good option there for crowd control. Once again though, you have plenty of other options for crowd control too. Obvious one, you could go with nukes for the grenade launcher, which has a ton of crowd control. Kind of dangerous. I talk about the Fat Boy pretty often, so I didn't really want to include it here. Basically everything for the Breach Cutter does pretty good crowd control too, any of those ones. So if you want to try Inferno or Lightweight Cases or even Roll Control, all those can work pretty well. And then for the Shard Diffraction, you could also use Plasticrete Catalyst or Volatile Impact Reactor or Feedback Loop. All of those are really good for crowd control too. And then for primary weapons, you could go with explosive rounds for the Loki. Those work pretty well. Or you could go with something like mini shells for the shotgun. Moving on to our fourth build, we have an ammo build, which is one of the things that Engineer can kind of struggle with. You can run through ammo really fast with Engineer. So this one, you'll probably be running through less than normal. For primary weapon, I decided to take the shotgun once again, and I took mini shells on this. Mini shells is pretty useful because you get a lot more ammo for it, although it does cut down on your damage. That doesn't matter too much if you take the 2 damage mods, then you can still make up that amount of damage, and you can use it as kind of a general purpose weapon for firing at most ranges. And then I decided to pair this with efficiency tweaks with the Shard Diffractor, which just gives you more ammo overall, so you just have a more consistent Shard Diffractor. This is to kind of make up for the shotgun's lack of range, because the shotgun works really well at close and medium range, and can work okay at longer ranges, but the Shard Diffractor works really well at longer ranges, and this build should work well against basically everything. So it's also kind of a general purpose build, but more of an emphasis on ammo. There are some other options here. If you want more ammo, you could go with lightweight cases with the Breach Cutter, you could go with any of the ammo mods for the grenade launcher, and then for primary weapons, you could also go with Turretium Discharge, which we just talked about for Stubby. That one is super ammo efficient as well. If you don't like running through ammo with Engineer, I'd recommend trying out these ones. They can definitely make up for the lack of ammo that you may experience. And then our fifth and final build is going to be a general purpose build, and I picked one of my favorite general purpose builds, which is Explosive Chemical Rounds Loki and Lightweight Cases Breach Cutter. These are two of the best overclocks in the game in my opinion. Explosive Chemical Rounds makes it so your rifle turns into a burst rifle, where all you have to do is count to 3, put 3 locks on something, and then let go. That third lock will cause an explosion, whether it's the first bullet that kills, or the third bullet that kills, or just the third bullet that hits. This explodes, dealing damage, and dealing damage to everything around it. It also does really well at breaking up armor and fearing enemies. That's super nice. It's quite ammo efficient too, which is really good. And then lightweight cases for the Breach Cutter just makes it so you have more ammo. Technically gives you reload speed too, but that doesn't really matter. You don't need reload speed with the Breach Cutter. Most of the time I'm running Born Ready anyway with Engineer, so that's kind of whatever. But just more ammo with the Breach Cutter is really good. Breach Cutter's already super strong. This makes it even better, more consistent, kills crowds really quick, kills big things really quick. You can shoot through walls with it, which is great, and you can just shoot right through big enemies, so you don't even need to be right up next to the weak spot. Explosive Chemical Rounds kind of works the same way, because it will explode and deal AoE damage. So these are 5 strong builds for every job for Engineer. Hopefully this kind of helped you out, and tell me your 5 builds for these type of categories too with Engineer. Engineer is quite flexible, so you have plenty of options there. They also have a lot of fun options too, especially with secondaries. Secondaries kind of fill just about every role that you would want them to, which is great. Thanks everybody for watching this. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.